pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any correspondence? I'm sorry.
You're going to vote on the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Vote on the approval of the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain.
The Sharp Real Estate Subdivision Plan.
Hi, my name is Kevin Farr with David Laird Associates, and I will be presenting the Sharp Real Estate Plan. Hopefully I can answer any questions that you guys might have. So it's basically cutting to subdivide the residential house from the commercial property located along Hershey Road. And a variance was granted at the zoning hearing board for the minimum lot size. Easement has been shown on the plan on the east side of the property, the proposed parcel A to access the residential house.
And I'm bringing it up here.
Yep.
The proposed easement side, is that adequate in size for a vehicle to move in and out of there?
I believe it should be. It's a 25-foot ingress and egress easement, so yes. I basically just included the whole drive that, I came up with 25 feet just because I wanted to include the whole driveway. And I didn't want there to be an easement only on part of the driveway. And it's a little bit of a wider driveway in that area. So I did a 25-foot easement.
And it's also my understanding that as you pointed out, zoning hearing board approved their variance, and then they've
Yeah.
also required that the easement be recorded.
Correct.
Okay.
Or the easement be shown on the drawing. which
Shown on the drawing,
will
you
be
record it
yes.
presently, right, county clerk? Okay.
Yes.
Any further questions?
No.
I have a motion. For the Sharp Real Estate.
Oh, I've got one comment. Now that we understand more about the term proposed, I feel comfortable about going ahead and moving that we accept the plan as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion approved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Record show it's 2-1. The next item on the agenda is the Joseph and Roberta Kuzma subdivision plan.
I'm Jim Welka. I represent the Kuzmas in this minor subdivision plan. Purpose to create a 2-acre lot in the northeast corner of the parcel. That's about it.
Pretty cut and dry.
Yes. Does conform to the depth to width ratio.
And those are not dwellings.
No, those are just sheds. Probably should be knocked down.
Are they serving any pump purpose at this point?
No. Grown over with vines and, yeah, not really serving any purpose.
Can I have a motion on the Kuzma subdivision plan?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve and seconded. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Plans approved. The next item on the agenda is the Multimodal Transportation Fund.
Great, so as it pops up on the screen behind you, the township's in the process of applying for the PennDOT Multimodal Grant to fund construction of sidewalks along Commons Drive on Peach Street. And it'll take a minute to load, it's a large file. So as part of that application, the township is seeking from the planning agency, the planning commission, a consistency letter stating that the proposed project is in compliance with the comprehensive land use plans. We've done these in the past, typically for land developments and so on, but this one's for a grant application. So if looking up here, the green areas are the areas where there's existing sidewalk, and the blue areas are areas where there's gaps. So we're looking to kind of do a multi-phase project with the grant where we start at Downs Drive and proceed north along Commons and stop just short of the intersection of Rotunda and Peach. This first phase, roughly $200,000 to $300,000 project. The grant has a 30% match. So we'd be able to get a good chunk of the sidewalks done on Peach Street, and then PennDOT has future plans to come through and do paving work on Peach Street, at which time there's a good possibility that these intersections would be improved and updated, and the sidewalk along this section would be put in as well. And then we'd be kind of left with these kind of offshoot areas to finish in the future. So any questions, comments?
What does the correspondence consist of? It's a consistency letter?
Just a letter.
Okay. And the chairman of the
Yes.
planning commission signs it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there, do we vote on it? Is a vote required?
Typically, you would vote to authorize Tim to
Right.
sign the letter.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
And then you stated that this is a stage process, that would be the first stage
Yes.
to the funding. Would these other bottom areas be possible funded further down the line?
That's the plan.
Okay.
They'd either be funded further down the line, or if and when development goes through, they would be put in at that point as well. Because these are also going to be shown on the, when we do our transportation plan amendment, as areas that need to have sidewalk. So we'd have a mechanism for the sidewalk ordinance to have them put in as well. But there's a lot of people that get the bus up to Peach Street, and then they get dropped off in the grass and have to walk up the street. And just from a safety concern, we'd like to address that.
Would you say that these are our highest priority sidewalks in the township?
At this point, yes.
Is there a timetable on this at all?
The grant is due mid-November, so that's why we have it before you tonight, because if we wait till the next meeting, it'll be too late. And then we can also use this, there's the DCED multimodal funding round in the spring, and there's a couple other ones that we could possibly use this project for too. So we know this is a very competitive grant, and there's a good possibility that we wouldn't get funded, so we have other ones that we're looking to as well.
Then I have a motion to direct the chairman to sign the consistency letter.
I'll make a motion to sign the letter for the multimodal grant.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Matt, do you guys have it all, your application built out already?
We're working on it. We are looking into having a consultant come in and do the application with us,
Okay.
just because time crunch, it's probably not going to be possible for us to get it done in time. because we only have roughly 4 weeks to get it done.
Okay.
How can, just curious, Matt, how can, maybe somebody else here knows, how can citizens, residents of Summit Township influence PennDOT to become a little bit more critically aware of what's going on Peach as far as sidewalks go? I mean, you know, is this like a state representative type thing, or a state senator, or the like? Any ideas?
Well, what the township's been doing probably the past, 5 years, is actually staging that. You know, talking to PennDOT at the MPO, which is if a tribunal, if you will, of all the representatives and municipalities in the county that go after funding and make decisions on state roads, things like that, right? The funding.
Right.
So they've been going through this process for a long time, identifying these areas and trying to push this corridor here and getting it finished, so they're aware. Now, does it help to get a letter of support from a representative that may be in the building? Sure. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that, especially around midterm seasons, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're chomping at the bit for any letter you want, you know? And that's kind of how the money gets, it's discretionary. And they love to, I don't know, song and dance it, if you will, when money comes out. Now, everybody here does all the work, but, you know, they belabor that, hey, it's my turn this time, you know, we should be getting these funds. And they become harder and harder to get. You know, the state, without belaboring, the tip keeps going down and down in money, and infrastructure is older and older and older. And it all goes by volume. So we're always, if we're declining, we're always gonna be put to the wayside. And if you look at it, Erie County's gotten a ton of money from the state and the Fed over the past 7-8 years. So you gotta have to take every opportunity you can just to get any of it, in my opinion. You know, I think it may be different than that, but that's just kind of the way I look at it.
You played the game, so you know better
Yeah.
than I do.
Yes.
Do you know who the state representative on these projects is down in Butler?
In Butler,
Yeah.
I don't, but each, like I said, each region has this thing called an MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and they program and plan all the state and highway bridge funds and road funds. So I'm sure you could go to their website and type in, you know, Butler Transportation, you'll find something called MPO, what is this? Typically through the county or something, and that's the best way to look for it.
Well, if anybody's interested in who it is, I know who it is. I can give you that.
Okay. Share it with the township, absolutely.
You have the individual's name then?
I got it at home.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I would. Good.
This next project is how I know who it is.
Okay.
Matt, if you guys ever want any review, comment on the application, I'd be glad to do so. Sure. Or if you'd like to let Dan Keene know that it's coming.
Okay.
Pretty much that for the
Yeah, that's it for now, yeah.
multimodal.
Yep.
We'll move on to the next item on the agenda is the Summit Township Traffic Calming Policy.
And I'm gonna apologize up front that this is going to be a discussion, so it's not gonna be quick. So, just to give you some backstory, the township has gotten numerous concerns on Hammett and Oliver Road over at the 5 Points area, as you guys are aware, regarding the speeding, traffic, passing and no passing zones, so on and so forth. So we've contacted Pat Wright at the LTAP, it's the Local Technical Assistance Program. I saw the acronym and it just slipped my mind, but it's the Local Technical Advisory. I got it right the first time. But anyways, we worked with LTAP and they came up and we gave them all the information because we did numerous traffic studies on Hammond and Oliver Road over the past 5 to 6 years on the speeds, and they have been trending down, but not as quick as we'd hope. So we sent them all of our data, and they reviewed it and provided us a report. You guys didn't get the report, but if you want to see it, I can provide it to you. And part of that report, they did suggest certain speed calming techniques for those roads, but they also suggested as the conclusion, the next steps is based on the review of the available data, discussions with Summit Township staff, and traffic calming resources. The township can consider the merits of several different traffic calming options for Oliver and Hammond Road. The township should follow the process outlined in publication 383, which is the Pennsylvania Traffic Calming Handbook, for development of a traffic calming policy, as well as traffic calming study before moving forward with implementation, outreach, community acceptance, traffic studies, and so on and so forth. So with that, we've drafted, basically this is the first draft of a Summit Township traffic calming policy, and I was asked to present it before you guys to get your opinions on it, so we can keep moving forward with it. So, as far as the purpose of this policy is to establish the guidelines for installing traffic calming systems on township-owned roadways. They're designed to reduce speed, but not volume of the roads, and the purpose of traffic calming devices is not to move traffic to adjoining roadways. And then we go through the definitions. 85th percentile speed is typically what we gauge to see what the speeds are on the road. The general consensus is 85% of the drivers drive at a safe and prudent speed for the roadway conditions. And then we have road definitions, arterial road. These are your larger roads, your Peach Street, your Perry Highway, I-90. Those are your arterial roads. The collector roads are the roads that kind of feed off of those roads and lead into the subdivisions, the commercial developments, and so on and so forth. And then your local roads are your roads where people live and where your businesses are. The one definition I want to draw your attention to is a local traffic advisory committee. We'll talk about this throughout the policy. This is recommended in the PA manual. It is a standing committee which coordinates requests for traffic calming measures made within the local jurisdiction. This typically includes the engineer, a planner, a representative from the governing body, a representative from emergency services, one or more local citizens, and representatives from public works. So if we leave that in there, we have to form a standing committee, another agency that we have to populate. So it's kind of in there right now, but if we don't want that, we can always remove that. We also have in there primary access routes for emergency services, so the areas where the fire services or ambulance services are more likely to use, since the fire stations are on Oliver Road. Oliver Road would be one of those roads, even though it's state, but like Robinson Road possibly would be one. But basically that would limit the traffic calming on those roads because we don't want to reduce response times. Everybody knows what a property owner is. And then the traffic calming measures is a combination of physical features that reduce the negative effects of motor vehicle use, alter driver behavior, and improve conditions for non-motorized users in streets. Traffic calming measures are not traffic control devices, but rather physical parts of the roadway design characteristics. So then that kind of lays the groundwork. Any questions so far?
Yeah, that description of the traffic calming measures is rather, in my opinion, rather vague. It just says that physical features.
Yes.
They talking, is it speed bumps, or are they talking?
It's everything. It's speed bumps, speed humps, speed tables, mini roundabouts, median islands.
It's like an umbrella phrase.
Yes.
Is there going to be a listing of the different methods?
Not in this policy, but the policy refers back to the traffic calming manual, and they're all in there.
And they're in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the last thing I want to do is put a list in here, and then all of a sudden there's a new one. And then we have to go back and redo this. So if we leave it a little vague, that leaves us room for future use. It's not pigeonhole us into certain ones. Because I went through multiple PA traffic calming policies, and some of them they just pigeonhole themselves into one type of traffic calming device, and that's all they got. And there's a dozen or so that are out there right now. Anything else? All right, so starting with the process, street eligibility. So in order for us to consider traffic calming, it has to be a township street. We're not going to work on state roads, so if you want traffic calming on a state road, you have to go to the state. It has to be a local road. We will not do traffic calming on arterial roads. Collector roads may be considered on a case-by-case basis. Kind of where you look at it is the collector going, is it densely populated? Does it need to be there? They'll just wanted to leave the option in there for a collector road. But primarily local roads. Speed limit 25 miles an hour or less. It's highlighted yellow because we could bump it to 35, but typically 25 is the speed limit. So it would be for roads 25 miles an hour or less. The streets located within a residentially zoned area. We don't want to have traffic calming on the side streets of Peach. Road cannot be a primary access for emergency services. We discussed that. The average daily traffic is greater than 1,000 vehicles per day or 100 vehicles per peak hour. And that's kind of getting rid of like the roads where there's like people traveling on the residents. So the speeders are the people that live on it at that point. So if we have the traffic volume higher, it's having a greater impact. And then the 85th percentile speed must be greater than 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. So that's the eligibility requirements before we start entertaining traffic calming. Yes?
Comments. It seems, it would suggest to me that the speed limit, 25 miles per hour or less, is almost mutually exclusive with the average daily traffic greater than 1,000 vehicles per day or 100 vehicles during 1 hour peak. The reason being is that most of our residential areas are 25 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I can assure you that some traffic calming is desirable in my neighborhood at 25 miles per hour. I can see a use for that and a need for that. But we would not get 100 vehicles during 1 hour peak, 100 cars, we wouldn't get it. So that one criteria kicks us out.
Okay.
So that's one of my concerns, and I think there should also be some provision in here that would assist or more strenuously suggest traffic calming in areas that do not have sidewalks. Because people will be walking in the streets, and if we're going to make drivers a little bit more responsible in terms of speed and whatnot, being careful for kids and pedestrians, that would be one thing that I would throw in there.
Okay. So, any suggestion on the vehicle count that you would think? We could put a caveat in there, 1,000 vehicles per day, 100, unless sidewalks are not present, and then.
But I guess really in the big picture is how many roads are we really talking about here? Because it sounds like to me, going through these criteria here, there's a handful of them.
You're not left with much.
That
filters out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be drafting a policy for what this is saying. I know why it says it, like I get it, but to me, you've got a few places and, I mean, literally, there might be a handful. And I don't think that's really what you're aiming to do.
So do we nix the whole volume requirement? And
There's up in McCain, behind Country Fair, that road. that
I
goes-
know.
They have all those speed bumps on there. And that can't have that high.
Yeah. And I think the primary reason they did that was to stop cut-through traffic.
Well, probably.
Matt, is it possible
Yeah.
to know a lot of the ADTs of these roads that we're talking about?
Yes.
Like, so we could see like, hey, on average, we probably should have it written for this?
I think for the most
Instead of
part,
just going at it anecdotally?
yeah, I think we have ADTs for all the roads
Okay.
within the past couple of years. We can look at it and kind of adjust it.
Yeah, I think at
based on
that
the
point,
average or
you
something
find a
like that.
range, you
Yeah.
know?
But yeah, this is based off the PennDOT criteria.
Yeah.
Maybe the calming techniques that you use would vary for the ADT for a particular street.
They would.
Okay.
We'll get to that a little further on.
I think we had a comment from someone.
Yeah, you were talking about 25-mile-an-hour speed
Yes.
limit, and this policy would apply to Hammond Road?
It can. That's why that's highlighted.
Well, the speed
and
limit on
one of the-
Hammond Road is 35.
It is, yes. And probably if we were gonna implement traffic calming on Hammett, the first thing we would do would be to limit it to 25, because the reason we do 25 is because a lot of the traffic calming devices are designed to get the cars down to 15 to 25 miles an hour. So if you have a 35-mile-an-hour road with the traffic calming, people are constantly gunning it to get back up to speed between them. So if we were gonna implement traffic calming on Hammett, we would, at the same time, we'd lower the speed limit to 25.
Right.
That's why I kept it there, but it is highlighted. It can go to the 35. And it would, if it was a 35-mile-an-hour road, we'd be designing traffic calming to get it to 35, which would be a little trickier.
A lot of the traffic that you did the study on
Yes.
Hammett, and I'll tell you what, they lie down there.
Yeah, it
They
just
don't
seems
pay
to
any
me,
attention to that 35-mile-an-hour.
No one does. They usually drive what feels comfortable to them. I live on a 25-mile-an-hour road. I drive 25 just to upset people, and I usually have like a line of 15 cars behind me if they don't pass
I've
me
never
before I
driven
get there.
25 on your road.
What's that?
I've never driven 25
I know, no one
on
does.
your road.
an honest man.
But that's why I have 25, because
Well, the question then is, how do you make them drive 25 miles an hour? Because they don't drive at
that's where
35
this,
miles an
the
hour.
policy comes in. And the main purpose of the policy is not to discourage traffic calming, because in McCain on East Avenue, they put the speed hump up there, and everybody wanted it, and then 2 months later, I was at a meeting where they were all there trying to get it removed.
And sometimes you have to understand, some of these things are this way by design. You know, if you put houses out there, people are gonna come out that way. And just because you put a traffic calming measure one place, that means I'm changing my habit. I may go to the next road over, so you're almost pushing this around sometimes. So
Yes.
like, I understand the intent, and I admire it, but I think with the amount of roads that we have isolated situations on collector roads, you know, more so than anything that I think people have a feeling about. You know, I don't think someone's going down my road saying, oh, they go too fast, and even though they build a stop sign every single time, you know. But again, most of my neighborhood does have sidewalks, you know, but some of these larger roads where people are flying through and things like that, I think it's a tough one to put something on there. I mean, is that really feasible for the township economically to do? Because it's gotta be maintained, you know, I mean, I'm all for a policy, I just think like if the committee is formed, you know, how do you really base those criteria in judging what would make you put one in or not? Because you don't want to be in a situation where, okay, hey, you know what, we just pushed it to Oliver, or you know what, it's gonna go out Edinburgh in this way, and then we have people on roads that are truly isolated and not an issue, that you're having to more and more maintain because there's more traffic. So I don't know, and again, I'm not in the tough position of that, I'm just kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and Chris, you're a former law enforcement officer, right?
Yes.
Is traffic calming really lukewarm law enforcement? Is that what we're really talking here? Because you're basically dealing with people who are breaking the speed limit, right?
You are.
So, just on Oliver Road, when you're going from Hammett down to Dunn Valley, that speed calming
It's
device
more,
is
it's,
there.
It's more of a raised crosswalk more than a speed calming device.
Well, it's got the same features
It
as
does.
speed calming, but it's not, it's ineffective. I don't know what the stats
Within-
are since that was put in, but
It was the speeds were exactly the same pre and post.
So people will slow down just to go over the hump, then it's back up. Either way, whether they're coming from Dunn Valley or heading towards Dunn Valley, because I walked that since the township did the nice,
Yeah.
a lot of our people down where I live use that. And it's nice because you know they're gonna be going slow when you cross the street on that raised sidewalk, or crosswalk. But other than that, you don't want to walk in the street at all, because it's not having the calming effect that you would like it.
No, and typically, to have a calming effect, you need a feature like that every 200 feet. I think their suggestion was mini roundabouts at all the intersections with speed humps midway between, was for both of the streets.
What's a speed hump?
That's basically what's at that raised crosswalk. It's just, instead of having a flat spot on top, it just goes up and down.
Two things about these raised crosswalks things. Number one, how do the snow plows handle those things? And are they gonna tear it up?
Our guys have gotten used to them, because we had a speed hump put in on Frank Avenue, and they kind of were able to get used to them with that one. But the one on Oliver has been through his whole season, and what we do is we put the curb on either side of it, and we put curb and delineators, that way the plow knows it's there. And if you look at it, the curb actually ramps up, that way if they do hit the curb, it just raises the plow up, and then that protects the sidewalk from getting wiped out. That way if they do miss it, they're only gonna take a nick out of the curb, hopefully.
In looking at it after
We timed out.
after the winter season, it didn't take the beating I thought it was gonna take.
No, it did really well.
It stood the winter very well. It surprised me. It's got some nicks in it, but
Yeah.
it's done very well.
All right, continuing on. So, we'll look at the eligibility requirements. If you have any suggestions, email them to me or call me and talk about it. But I'll take notes I took here and kind of tweak it. The next is implementation process. Now, this first highlighted section, neighborhood awareness campaign. I saw this in a traffic calming policy down in Georgia. And basically, what it does, it gets the residents involved in the policy. So it's like the first step, before you even come to the township, go talk to your neighbors and at least get the people that are speeding through, that you live with that are speeding through your neighborhood to stop. Because if there's a speeding issue in Valley View Subdivision, most likely it's people that live there. Or Trails of Five Points or Town Hall Village. For the most part, most of the traffic in there is generated from there. So this would be that process. You go to your HOA meeting, you talk about it there and say, hey, you guys need to slow down through here, and kind of go through that process. I'm not going to read it word for word. But that's the gist of it. And at that point, the township won't be involved with that. We start getting involved at the petition stage. So the requests need to be submitted in writing along with a petition to the Board of Supervisors, minimum of 30 days prior to any meeting where we discuss it. All adult residents of the affected street must be contacted by the applicants and advised that traffic calming measures are to be considered. A signed petition must reflect support by 80% of the residents along that street. If you're and 60% of residents that are on a cul-de-sac street, that is, the only way to access it is from that street. I guess the best way to describe that would be in Christopher's neighborhood, Julianne Lane. So if you were going to put a traffic calming device on Ennis Drive, you'd have to talk to the folks on Julianne Lane because they'd have to drive over it to get to their street. And you'd have to get 60% approval there. And then only one signature per household, one adult signature per household. So you can't get everybody, all the adults that are, 10 adults that are living with you to sign a petition and counted good. So we have the petition, and then the first step after the petition would be a kickoff meeting that we'd have. This meeting would be conducted by the township engineer. All households and businesses that will be affected by the installation of the traffic calming will be invited to the meeting. The meeting would be held at a time and place that maximizes the participation. That's a good one. Representatives from the township, emergency services, schools, transit agencies may be invited as applicable. And then if we were to have a traffic consultant come in and do the work, they would be there as well. And then next one, from that kickoff meeting, we'd form a neighborhood traffic calming committee. This committee would be formed of residents that came to the meeting. Nothing like being drafted. But this committee would help provide focus to the plan development process by providing a link between the neighborhood and the municipality. So basically, that committee would form as the liaison between the township and everybody else in the neighborhood.
So what's the LTAC do? The LTAC is larger and.
Yeah, that's why these are highlighted in yellow, because potentially the LTAC is, it may not even be, I don't think it's needed.
Yeah.
What we could do is, if we have a kickoff meeting, we'd form a neighborhood committee, the LTAC wouldn't exist, and we would just work with the neighborhood committee. Because to have all these standing committees, it's hard to find volunteers for things.
Yeah. I mean, just to look at it another way, you could just have an LTAC and not the other, because again, we only have a certain amount of roads.
Yeah.
This could be a project, you know what I mean, that the LTAC, or whatever you want to call it, yeah, it would be an LTAC, that would go through this process using this policy. You
And
know,
we just
they might have to be able to bang this out in a year and be done,
Mhm.
and then you don't need it anymore. Only because we only have so many roads.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So at this point, the LTAC committee would be the one that oversees the whole process. So the plan development, the township engineer with the assistance of the LTAC, and I think we mix the neighborhood committee, because the neighborhood committee could be the LTAC as well. We'll gather more extensive data that can be used for further defined traffic problem affecting the neighborhood. In addition, the data may help identify appropriate solutions or define which traffic calming measures are appropriate for a particular application. And basically, there's a little disclaimer that the committee may help, but they're not the ones collecting the data and making the proposals. So moving on, the next stage would be to collect and analyze data. The following data may be analyzed and determine appropriate solutions for traffic problems. So the speed, the volume, adjacent arterial roads. Prime example of this one would be the 5 Points intersection. Well, that's been going on. Everybody's been moving over to Chelsea Drive. So if the arterial road has a problem, people avoid it by going to the shortcut street, the cut through. So that's kind of where that talks about crash data, parking. We don't really have too much on-street parking in the township. Pedestrian bicycle activity, emergency service routes, transit routes, and the location of the schools, parks, and other facilities to the street. So we collect and analyze that data, and from that, identify appropriate traffic calming measures. So after the traffic data has been compiled, appropriate traffic calming measures can be identified. Identifying appropriate measures include the following: identification of which traffic calming measures are designed to solve the documented problems, appropriateness of the particular traffic calming device to the location where it's installed, and then we have a little thing in here that we will not do multi-way stops and traffic signals because they are not traffic calming, they are traffic control. So we collect and analyze the data, we come up with the most practical traffic calming measures, and then we meet and discuss. The next section is to concur and measure location and design. So at this point, township engineer will present the findings of the data analysis to the committee. Also, the engineer should describe which traffic calming measures are best able to address the problems identified and discuss neighborhood opinions about traffic calming. Through this and subsequent meetings, the Board of Supervisors, the committee will work toward a consensus plan on the most appropriate traffic calming measures that are designed in specific locations. So this is where we get into the iterative approach where the engineer says, let's do this. The committee's like, no, we don't like that. And then we just kind of work through it until we have a consensus on what everybody feels is the best possible solution. So once we have that, we move on to the approval process where we have an open house or public meeting to present the plan to the public. And you know how those goes. Basically like the zoning ordinance. So we show the plan. We have one plan of what we plan to do, and we take public comment. If there's just minor issues that need to be addressed, we'll address them when finalizing the plan. If it's something major, we could possibly have another public meeting or two until we get it ironed out. So working through that, we get to the final plan. And then from the final plan, we'd send it out to the neighborhood, and we'd have to have 70% approval of the plan in order to proceed to the final approval, which would be by the Board of Supervisors. And if we're affecting a PennDOT street or accepting PennDOT funding, we'd have to have PennDOT approval as well. So that's the process for the plan. After the plan is approved, it would be ranked, and the higher ranking projects would be given priority in funding. So say if we have 3 projects, and one project ranks really low, it'd be the last one to get done. And the ranking system up there, that's based off the PennDOT manual, verbatim. We can change that. That's not set in stone by any means. We could put more weight on speed, less on the school locations, because for the most part, not very many people are walking to the schools, and so on and so forth. And I'm almost done. So after all that, we would install and evaluate. So this goes into, the measures can be installed temporarily. If they're installed temporarily, they'd be installed in a temporary fashion to most dictate how the permanent one would be. So say if you're doing a speed hump, you could put down a removable speed hump to see what effect it has. And then there would be a 3 to 6 month test period. That way everybody can get used to it, and then we would go out and reanalyze it to see what impact that it had. And then continuing down, if the temporary installation works good, then we would go ahead and transition to the permanent. If during the temporary and or even the permanent, if there's certain things that need to be modified during that test period, we can go ahead and modify it. And then I think I missed something, sorry. The removal of traffic calming measures will only be considered after they have been in place and monitored for 6 months to a year, and then only with the support of the neighborhood unless a safety problem has developed. The other thing about the test period, it would go through a snow season to make sure that plowing is not affected. Now, if a safety problem develops, the township will take steps to modify the traffic calming policy or to remove it. PennDOT, if for some reason it's on their road, we might scratch this because we don't want them on state roads. PennDOT may also remove traffic calming measures installed on state road if a safety problem developed. PennDOT removes the measure due to safety concerns or caused by improper installation or maintenance. The cost of removal must be reimbursed by the municipality. You can tell this was written by PennDOT. And then the last thing in this is nothing in this policy shall interfere or waive the right of the township to install traffic calming measures within the public right of way without notice. So this kind of goes back to the Oliver Road. We were putting in a sidewalk project. We needed a safe place for people to cross the road, so we put in a traffic calming device there. So it's kind of the catch-all that the township still has the ability to do what they feel is safe. So what do you guys think?
I just have a couple of things. It seems to me that, and you know, this is a great start. It seems to me that many neighborhoods who would not qualify under the criteria or the points assignment system for prioritizing would benefit greatly from traffic calming.
Okay.
I think that's one of the, because I think this sets out, and you know, paying close attention to what available funds we have and that sort of thing. You got to pick your battles and you got to prioritize. And I think it's doing that, but it still, depending on the cost of a traffic calming measure, smaller neighborhoods that wouldn't qualify may, you know, be very appreciative and might even help defray the cost of a traffic calming measure in their neighborhood, of which I'm sure there are many. I haven't seen the PennDOT manual, but I'm sure it goes all the way from signs to install solar powered radar devices, you know, that tell you your speed when you're speeding through, right up to the trailer that measures your speed and then snaps a picture of your license plate. That's my favorite, by the way. And I mean,
I think a lot of this problem could be addressed if we could just do automatic enforcement.
why can't we? I mean, is it a cost?
There's a lot of rights issues with that. Mr. Lynch would be able to probably discuss that a
Is
lot
it a
better.
can of worms or?
Well, yeah, when you're using radar, and of course municipalities could never use that, so that's a state function. But again, I think that they're trying to get into, the city was trying to get into identifying some of the errant drivers with taking pictures of it, and it fell by the pictures of the individuals, the drivers, and of the plates, and it fell by the wayside because of some of the reaction. Now, what the status is right now, I don't know, but there was a certain amount of resistance against that type of procedure. They were installing the target area, the test area was 12th Street between Raspberry and Chestnut. And they got the money for a couple of cameras and went to put it into effect and ended up the resistance kind of overcame the situation. But again, we're going back probably 7 or 8 years, and I don't know what's going on now. But there is going to be some resistance to that.
Well, and I don't think it's permitted by state law.
Yeah, it's a done deal, yeah. You're not allowed to have them at all.
But just think of how much easier it would make it. You wouldn't have the confrontations on the side of the road between the police and drivers. So if you wanted to go speeding down the interstate, fine, you'll get your bill in the mail. And we have the technology for it. We have,
Like easy
Put it on my account.
yeah, you got Easy Pass, so we have the ability to do it.
Well, there are roads within the country where you pay to go into an exclusive lane, and it has a different speed limit. You know, they do these things all the time. The unfortunate thing is, I guess, when I was looking at this, and it just reminded me of so much PennDOT rhetoric and
You're
love.
welcome.
I was like, well, my concern was, how long is this action going to take from, hey, sir here has a problem, John Q. Public has a problem, to actually going to do something. And when, again, I'm going back to the fact that there's that time there. We have only so many amount of roads. Is this really a policy that's here to say, hey, when John Q. Public comes in and has a complaint, we defer to this to pass on to supervisors to give them the leverage? Or can we just form a committee, establish where these are, and put it all to rest? You know, because
open it up for public debate.
oh, absolutely, yes, the
Open it
full
up for public
process. Oh,
debate.
yeah. No. I mean, again, I'm just wondering if this is something we want to have in our toolbox, or if it's something we want to actively address.
So you're thinking kind of do like a comprehensive plan type thing where we look at the whole township, this is where it needs to be, we have the plan to do it,
Well,
and then we can leverage grant funds and stuff to go after it.
yeah, I'm saying if we have a safety issue that's rampant throughout our community, and it's not one size fits all, and if it is, we can base it this way and have a committee establish these criteria, the grading points a little differently to make for us to what the community would want. And yeah, you would have the opportunity to leverage funds for it, you know. But at the same token, I still think, you know, the question is, do you want it sitting out here for someone to come in and say, hey, please utilize this policy, or can we just address it now? You know, do we pass this on for every supervisor and things like that, or is this something that's important? Maybe just in one road right now. But do we need to look at all of them and say, look, this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna work, all these aren't gonna work, probably 2 or 3 places it's actually feasible. Because by the time you go through 60% of this, 80% of that, and you're going back and asking the opinion of someone, you're causing a storm of media coverage that's so unnecessary for something that's important. You know, and you won't get the right message across, and then you may change your mind based on what you see in the news every day, instead of saying, well, you know, there really are 10 cars going down that road. You know, I'm just thinking off of experience, things that come through my mind. I'm like, well, again, to me, it's a question. I think it's good the way it sits. It needs fine tuning in the metrics and all these little things. But to me, my question back to the township would be, is this going to be a policy sitting here waiting for the community to utilize, or does the township want to address this as an urgent need and put a committee to task?
Form a committee and come up with a plan.
I think that's going down the right road. And one other thing I'd throw in is that, again, we're not the first to run into this. We're not the first township to run into this. There has to be, for a commensurate size township, Summit Township, with the same kind of traffic issues, someone's been through this before. Did they try this and did it fall flat on its can?
A lot of them have one of these, that's a lot like this. Some municipalities, they have they call it the speed hump ordinance, where they charge the residents that want it a $5,000 fee for the township to put it in. That way they have money to take it out whenever they complain. I don't think we want to be that unfriendly.
We'd have 5 of them on Dorn Road tomorrow.
Really? So,
I think they would.
yeah,
But I
that's a
mean-
speedway. Dorn's a cut through.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, again, it's by design of the way our township is. I mean,
We did a really good job at designing roads for cars, and now we're paying the consequences for it.
Yeah, because part of this plan is getting people or encouraging people to use non-motorized means of transportation. And I guess the bottom line here is that if you got a lot of people speeding around in four-wheel, 7,000-pound vehicles, it's not going to be a friendly atmosphere for people who opt to ride self-propelled vehicles.
I mean, I guess the recommendation is, at least from my end, is to form a committee, do this township-wide, or using the policy that you've kind of set up, keep working on this, and maybe have that committee help fine-tune that, because you'll have people, just besides the planning commission, that are looking at it, they're more vested and interested in this kind of subject matter.
Yeah,
Maybe that'll get you community involvement, things like that.
I like it.
And would you really have to have a standing committee, or could it be a committee that would be like an ad hoc that would help you fine tune it?
Well, I think we get a committee, and at that point, it's kind of up to the committee if it's a standing committee or not. We come up with a plan if they want to stay on board and watch it come to fruition. Kind of like we did with the comp plan, and you guys are kind of the ones in charge of making sure it gets implemented.
A question on that speed trailer that's on Chelsea.
Yes,
Does that store or capture any data?
it does. I don't think we take any off of it normally. We have a radar traffic counter that we use. It's more discreet. It does a lot better job.
All right.
People don't know it's there, so they actually drive their normal speed limit.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious as to traffic flow. Does it count?
It does, yeah.
But you have better methods to do
Yeah.
it? Okay.
But that works as a really good traffic calming measure because it puts a chicane in the middle of the road, drops it down to one lane, and people have to slow down and stop. So it works really good on Chelsea Drive. A lot of people complain about it. I'm like, that's good. People are complaining you're calming traffic.
And I can see they took a beating when, they're doing the roundabout. Of course, I think we did too, because they would come up from Flower and then head up to Oliver to get up to Ham.
And in the spring, once the roundabout's done and everybody's used to it, we're gonna do traffic counts again to see where we're at. I have a feeling that the speeds might actually go up, just because that circle's so big.
Yep.
You can get some speed up in it. So No one is.
I was worried about that when I drove through it. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
a little fast.
So,
Way better than the stop signs.
Oh, yeah.
so we're gonna
I
see
think
what
it's
it's like after winter. We'll do more speed studies. We can get maybe get the committee forming this winter and. But I'll take your suggestions to the supervisors and see what they think.
Please, if they'd like to talk about it, I'd be willing.
I think it's a great idea.
One thing I noticed in the street eligibility, it says that a state road will not be considered, but further on,
I know,
it
there's,
discusses it.
that, like I said, it's a rough draft. I
Okay.
noticed it as I was going through it, there's inconsistencies there that we'd have to fix.
And I can
But,
imagine it.
yeah, the other thing
Pick and
is
choose.
funding source. If we use PennDOT liquid fuels money for these projects, they would have to approve them. So the state would be involved in that instance, but not necessarily on a state route.
Anything further on the calming policy?
I think that's all I have for you tonight. We'll take your suggestions and I'll discuss it with the supervisors.
That's it, then we're gonna move on to the planning commission duties.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know, we do appreciate your recommendations, your suggestions at every committee commission meeting. This was a great discussion tonight. We appreciate who you are and your expertise that you bring with you. I know Tim Will is a local carpenter, well-known carpenter. Chris Lynch, ex-cop, Christopher Friday, planning, parking authority, and soccer and what, kids.
Wrestling coach.
And
Yeah.
speeder on local roads. No.
Right. And Ron McInerney, engineer from Caterpillar, I believe. And I'm sure, and I learned tonight Christine Mathias is a maker and a designer and accountant. Was an accountant for I don't know how many years. So you guys bring your expertise to the table, and we just want to let you know that we appreciate it. Some of you may just think that you're a recommending body, and you're not. And so this is why I'm bringing this up tonight in the MPC, and I don't know if the new guys here are familiar with the MPC. Not only do I look when I'm doing permits or looking at land development plans or subdivision plans, I'm looking in the zoning ordinance, I'm looking in the Seldo, and I'm looking in the Greenspace Plan and making sure that they meet the zoning requirements, and then, Matt takes a review and looks at everything that he needs to look at regarding engineering. So I pulled it up on the board here. Did everybody get a copy of that in your Dropbox?
Yep.
Okay, you do. So this is section 209.1. The NPC is something that we have to follow, the Pennsylvania code, as well as our local zoning ordinance when we were to issue any kind of permit or whatever. So included in there are the powers and duties of the planning commission. I just want you guys to know the power that you do have. The planning agency, I'm not going to read them all, but the planning agency shall, at a request of the governing body, have the power and shall be required to prepare the comprehensive plan. I know 3 of the 5 of you were on the steering committee for the comprehensive plan, and we met every month, and we adopted the comprehensive plan in August of 2018, and I believe it was 30 years old at the time. So, the planning agency, at the request of the governing body, may make recommendations to the governing body concerning the adoption or amendment of the official map. You may present to the governing body a zoning ordinance and make recommendations, proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance. If there's something out there that you saw maybe in Cranberry or in Harbor Creek and you liked the way something read, when you read it, please bring it to our attention or email me, hey, in regards to this subject, is there any way, it's not clear in our zoning ordinance, is there any way we can change it to this? You're also prepare, recommend, and administer subdivision and land development. And there's several items in here from 4 to 13 I'm not going to read over, and as well as review the zoning ordinance, subdivision and land development ordinance, official map, provisions of planned residential development, and other ordinances and regulations governing the development of land, no less frequently than it reviews the comprehensive plan.
So, again, we have several ordinances out there, and if there's something that you guys recommend or like the way something reads better than what we have, I encourage you to bring it to the table, and I'd be happy to show it to the supervisors. On another note, just so you know as well, in regards to your recommendation regarding the cell tower that was just recently denied, they did ask, how did the planning commission vote? And it was a 5-0, and I know one supervisor was on the fence on which way to go, and once he heard that you guys did not recommend approval of that cell tower, he denied it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
They can't put it in. Good.
And what provision was that again? I'm sorry, Tammy, I may have missed the details on that. What was that?
So they were proposing a cell tower at 89.
Got it. I remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad they went.
So, I mean, there was more to it than that. I was looking at the map that they provided, and they provided an old map. And I noticed that the new map had changed districts. And so it's weird that one area was changed to residential, and you cannot have a cell tower within 200 feet of the residential district.
Good.
When he wanted to do this was before the zoning ordinance was adopted. He'd been working on this for a long time, so they used the old information. So, I mean, I updated them as much as I could. I believe we told them that you're using the old map, and then when we really went through it with a fine-tooth comb, we came across, this is way too close to the residential district. So that was one of the reasons, as well as, we have a local airport, but there was other reasons that they denied it. And as well as the solicitor looked through it, and he felt that application was not complete, as it should be. So I just wanted to relay that they really appreciate your recommendations. Because I have heard, we're just recommending body, but it's really important. As well as, either making little committees and working on the Seldo, which we're going to be doing next. I'm going to hand you guys a draft. You can work on a committee, you can work on it by yourself, but this is the proposed Seldo, Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. If you saw the old one, it does not jive with the zoning ordinance. We actually are modeling off the Erie County Seldo with their formatting and their table of contents, et cetera, they flow a lot nicer than ours. So this is our old one. Matt and I had gone through and we circled things, we highlighted things. Matt made sure that everything from here was in there incorporated correctly, but he does have some things highlighted in there that we need to discuss and take a look at. I was talking to these guys earlier. Feel free to get a Post-it note and put it on that page and let's talk about it. If there's a typo or if something doesn't make sense, it doesn't jive with our new zoning ordinance, we need to take a look at it. Now, there's things in there that you're not going to understand. Standards of making a road. I mean, Matt will cover all of that. But the basics. And then we're going to try to get rid of the green space ordinance and incorporate it in our Seldo. And here's where you guys can be specific if you want to. If you want to have one maple tree, a burning bush, and tiger grass in front of every land development, please incorporate that. We were talking earlier, Penn State Extension is in our building now, and they're very familiar with gardening and what grows around here and what zone. We can be specific as possible. We did take a look at some of the before and after pictures of the land development and subdivision plans in our area and what they proposed and what they look like now. And we can show them.
Yeah, I'll go through it. Pull it up.
You guys are making my day today.
You're welcome.
And this is Yankee Honda.
Can you kick on the slideshow? Will it let you? Oh, there we go. So first up, basically I went through and we looked at some of the more recent ones. So the first up here we have Yankee Honda. This is the parking lot expansion they did, I can't see the date, a few years ago. 2020, only 2 years ago. So this was kind of an overflow parking area, and as you can see, they really needed it because it's been sitting empty for the past year and a half. So this is the plan. We'll go to the next slide. This is what it looks like today. So basically, they did basically per the plan. Now this one, the green space really suffered. If you remember original plans, there were supposed to be trees and shrubs in the front, similar to what's in front of Bianchi Honda. But during construction, they found out that there was a nice water main right there, and the water authority wouldn't let them plant any trees there, so they came back and did a revised green space plan. So now we have those little patches of grasses out front. So green space wise, this one really suffered. But I know during the process, we had them adjust the lights at least once or twice due to the lighting issues. So basically, we're going to go through these. If there's something you don't like about these plans, let us know, because we can try to incorporate it into the new subdivision ordinance. Primarily with this one is just as Tim always says, it's a sea of asphalt. And there's not much green space, and even in the green space, it's just a couple grasses with gravel.
Now, I think the plants are dead now, I drove by there the other day.
I'll score.
So in our ordinance, it does read if a plant dies or is no longer there, they have to replace it. So, I mean, I don't have a problem calling up Yankee and say, where do you go with your green space? Or how can we fix that?
Who's the enforcement entity for that? Is that code enforcement?
That's me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what leverage do you have on them? Let's say they don't do it. Just say, hey, you know.
Well, then it's violation.
Yeah, I think the violation is a little different than the zoning ordinance, but there's still fines and stuff like that. So we'll move on to the next one. So we have composite flex here. This one's still under construction, but if you remember, it was the giant warehouse. Plan's really bad. They're putting in the warehouse expansion here, some parking expansions and stormwater. So we'll go to the next slide. This is what it looks like right now. So they're currently working on the building expansion here, and parking's gonna go here and everything. The one thing I'd like to point out here is the industrial park. For an industrial park, it looks really nice. And I tried as much as I could to incorporate the industrial park landscaping requirements into the green space section of the subdivision ordinance. So we'll go on to the next one. I think the next one is Plastic Coast, yes. So this is the Plastic Coast Medical. So originally it was a small building, and they had room for expansion in the back. It's faded with the copy, and then they banked some parking over here. So we'll go to the next slide. And as you can see, they did well, so they added on already, and they have the parking expansion. And like I said, this one, green space is dictated by the zoning ordinance. They're required to have so many trees per frontage, so many trees per parking spot, and kind of fill in with green space throughout. So we'll keep moving. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt me.
There's no issues with Plastic Coast so far, right?
No, not that I'm aware of. So Hawkeye Hotels, this is, I can't remember what hotel brand it is, we'll see when we flip the page, but the hotel on Downs Drive. So just highlights how many 4-story, 151 room hotel, parking out in front, and green space, just some trees and shrubs. So we'll go to the next page, see what it looks like. So it's a Holiday Inn. So they have the green space areas in there, and so on and so forth. I think of all the hotels up there, this is probably one of the better looking ones right now. Any questions.
What time of day did you take these pictures? Or do you know? Was it
Probably early afternoon by the shadows.
just like around, I'm familiar with bicycles because they donate a lot to Lions Club.
Yeah.
And there's always more cars there. I didn't
Oh,
know
okay.
if you did that on a Sunday afternoon.
No, it was in the middle of the day.
Was it?
Yeah.
And I would think that the hotel would be busier.
Well, it's midday. This is probably right about the time when everybody was checked out and before everybody starts checking in. Because you can see the food truck was there. We'll continue on. So moving across the street, get ready for another empty parking lot, but we got the U-Haul here and associated parking. This one's not the prettiest, but move on. Thanks. So we got the U-Haul, like customer parking's on the side, and then they have merchandise parking throughout.
It's not that bad, really. You look at least there are, I think Bianchi Honda's got a lot less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when that was originally planned out, the thought of how many cars were gonna be there
I know.
because of COVID and everything else.
They were still doing really good when they started the planning on that, because that was right, I think it was probably right when COVID started.
They're in the middle of an arms race.
Yeah.
They all want more and more cars.
And the thing is too, I imagine they're suffering, even U-Haul is suffering somewhat.
Well, yeah, you look here, I think there's supposed to be trucks parked here for rent and everything, and there's nothing there. Just keep moving along. So our favorite copperleaf. I think we looked at this plan for 6 years. So this is the example of the worst case, highest density, mixed use neighborhood. Because when we were doing the zoning ordinance, we kind of use this as the test bed of this is the worst we can get with mixed use density. So we have the commercial out front with residential over top, and then the townhomes and apartment buildings in the back. We'll go to the next page. This is what it looks like now. So most of the parking being in the rear, I don't understand that. That's kind of a pain in the butt. I don't like that intersection. You don't know if it's a roundabout or if it's just a median
It's
island.
hard to get in and out of there too.
I don't like it. This would be good if you didn't have this median island here.
Maybe it's traffic calming.
I guess so. It has that effect. If it makes people mad, it's traffic calming.
Yeah.
But if you remember the plan, their back property line is back here. So we have all this green space, and the mixed-use neighborhood is still written in a way that it protects the wetlands, steep slopes. So this is the worst thing that could have went there under mixed use. And for the most part, I haven't really seen too many negative impacts from it.
Are they planning any more building there?
No, this is built, it's completely built out right now. He did have ambitions to try to buy this lot and continue, but I don't think he got it.
I heard that they were building a place for a pizza shop there.
That would be awesome.
Well, I heard it was Colony Pizza.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, we have the cakery here, and I think there's an insurance agency there, but
There is.
he's been having trouble filling this one and these
Well,
ones.
that building's not big enough for the pizza shop they want.
This one?
Yeah, the other one that's,
That-
Cakery's in there, that one they said is not big enough.
Okay.
Ooh. And then there's the sidewalk issue too, but I will connect in.
And the supervisors are aware of that.
Did I just see in one of the last meetings, they released the bond on that?
Stormwater bond.
Yeah, stormwater bond, because he complied.
Yeah, it was a stormwater bond.
Okay.
But Joe's been griping, how am I supposed to put sidewalk in if we have a ditch along here? And we do have a plan to storm sewer it, and then that'll be one last excuse that he has gone. But people do walk up and down Zook Road quite a bit.
Yeah.
And with our new sidewalk ordinance, this is one of those sections that's delineated as requiring sidewalk.
On the September 6th meeting, that they approved the release of the Copperleaf sidewalk bond.
That's a typo.
Yeah, they can.
Per Engineer Jones.
No, they didn't have a sidewalk bond, so. No, that was the remaining stormwater bond.
Because I remember discussing this before about if the right things occur, then they'll have to put one in.
Yes, and the right things are occurring. And one thing Tammy pointed out, there's Mill Creek. So we don't really we're not,
There's a big difference
yeah,
between Summit Township and
we're not as dense and we don't have as much filled in as they do. All right, we'll continue on. Next up is Kunso Landscape Shop on Johnson Road. The original plan, we got the detention pond and have like a little pocket rain garden thing here. Move to the next page. This is what it looks like right now. They're pretty much 100% done now. They did make a revision to the stormwater pond. They take out the forebay and everything, so that's been modified. So that's probably the only difference. And I think this is gravel, and the original plan showed asphalt. But they have the trees planted all along the frontage. And continue on. Next up here we have the BSI development that was on Bloomfield and Perry Highway. This is that kind of dilapidated building that they bought and renovated, and they turned it into a storage yard in the back. So we'll go to the next slide. So building's been renovated. We got the storage in the back. It's all fenced in. They deferred the sidewalk along the frontage of 97 in the corner. The reason they did that was because the sidewalk would trigger the signal upgrade, and the township does not have the money for signal upgrades at this point. Because typically, it's probably over $1 million to upgrade a signal nowadays, well over $1 million. So the supervisor deferred, so the sidewalk ends here. They do have a kind of a bus stop here for the people waiting for the bus. So we'll continue on. Perry Pet Clinic. I don't know if you guys remember this one. Down towards Waterford on 97, Sampson Station Road right here. Kind of vet clinic. This one's not completely done, as you'll see in the next picture coming up here. So they're close. They got the stormwater in. They have the excavation from the stormwater here piled up. Parking area is not completely paved yet. They were kind of doing it in phases. I think that's kind of how she was doing it. So not quite done yet, but kind of working on it. And go back to the slide before. Sorry. And they had some green space out front, and as you can see from the picture, the green space isn't there yet. So this is one that's been kind of dragging on. So move on. Any questions, comments as we're going? All right. And I think this is the last one, Auto Express Kia. I think this was the last car dealer that we did. So your typical car dealership, couple parking areas, some islands, and so forth. So next picture. So there's those islands. The car dealers do not like grass, apparently, so infilling with stone. And then we got the green space out front. And I think for the most part, they just kind of continued it from up the road going down, just doing the same thing over and over.
Isn't that the airport in the background there?
Yep, there's Airlines airstrip right there, and I think the tower was supposed to go here. And then we have Toyota coming here. So what things do you like and what things don't you like? That's kind of what I wanted to get out of this. And you don't have to give me an answer tonight, just kind of think about it, and if something pops in your mind, let us know.
Just use of the drone helps me immensely understand what's going on. So I think it was money well spent.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just kudos to you for thinking that far ahead. That makes me understand and realize better.
You guys are always looking at drawings, and I just wanted to give you what the drawings look like in real life when they're done.
I mean, it seems like,
Naturally, I like the more plants you got, like a tree with an area that is dedicated for that. It seems to be, like, even those grasses there, it even seems to be mulched, those types of things. Those are the things that I like.
Yeah.
So more dressed up.
Right, and then toward the lower end, I mean, any green's good, but toward the lower end would be just like a bush setting in the middle of grass. That would be at the lower end for me. But maybe it just has to do with you got more fill, and, as time goes on, it'll look better, the trees grow up, that'll be an attractive frontage there.
And this kind of gives you a visualization. Let's just see the marginal access going through there. Because you can see it's going to connect in the Toyota down this way. It's already connected through the thing. So, and that was one of our we dropped the ball a little bit on this one because we should have gotten a policy in place. If we would have had the subdivision ordinance in place, we could have in that subdivision ordinance that they need to provide the turning lane as it extends down. Because with Toyota, the Toyota is going to be a lot bigger than the Auto Express Kia. So we brought it up to PennDOT that we wanted to do the traffic impact study and potential turn lanes there. And my argument was the Kia dealerships, it's part of the Joe Askins complex there. If someone wants to get in and out of here, these driveways, for the most part, are going to be, unless you're making a right turn and in only. If you want to turn out and go the other direction, you can go here where you can utilize that center turn lane. So there's options there where when you're getting the Toyota, you're getting further away and the road's narrower, cars are faster. Because that's about the point where it goes up to 55 miles an hour on Peach Street. And we also tried to get them to eliminate the passing zone there for the same reasons, and kind of fell on deaf ears. But if we had that in our subdivision ordinance, that's something we could push on it.
I could just see them about to turn lane. Oh my gosh. Like, man.
PennDOT or?
Oh, never. I don't think that'll ever happen.
There's a good chance that we can get, oh, sorry. Maybe I'll wait till the next section to talk about that. So I'm done with my spiel.
So, I just wanted to add one more thing. So Wednesday, October 19th, what are y'all doing? 6:30 to 8 p.m.
I have nothing.
Nothing.
All right, so I scheduled a webinar next Wednesday. Here
Should be
in this meeting room. I signed myself up. I asked if we could sign everybody because it's kind of interactive, but if you have any questions, you know, I'll just have the computer in the front and we can type in the questions. It's kind of the basics of zoning, if you want to read the paragraphs below. I think, Ron, have you been to a couple of these?
Yes, I've been to a
Yeah.
couple of these.
So they're doing them online now instead of traveling
I
to
haven't been to this one.
Meadville. You haven't?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
You know John Grove?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sad, I missed the jokes. Is that good jokes?
6:30 to 8. And I have a couple webinars coming up too regarding short-term rentals and some other things coming up. If anybody ever wanted to join me, I can throw them out there. You can come sit in my office with me if you're available. They're during the day, usually around noon. But we got a lot going on in the township lately. So we appreciate all your help. And yeah, we've been hitting the news quite a bit lately.
Mill Creek's starting there.
Short-term rental.
Yeah.
And they're gonna regulate and they're gonna inspect and kind of follow what we did, so, yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So, that's all I have.
So real quick for the comprehensive plan implementation update, I just thought of this while we were talking. I think we've made some inroads with PennDOT regarding the center turn lane from Dorn to Robinson. They do have a plan, a project slated for that, and I think they're getting tired of us always saying, hey, you should put a center turn lane through there. That the last time we discussed it with them, they were pretty receptive to it. So, knock on wood, hopefully whenever they do that project, we'll get a center turn lane from Joe Askin's Kia dealership all the way up to Robinson Road. And that would help out Bianchi immensely.
Well, PennDOT too, they've got skin in the game in that area
Yes.
too.
And I think last year we had them put up some signage. I don't know if you've noticed it, but they have the turn warning sign, and I had them put up a kind of a warning sign for auto row where it has the sign and an auto row underneath it. Because part of the issue with the rear end collisions might have been just people going to Bianchi for the first time, and then, oh, there it is, slam on the brakes and try to turn in. Or hopefully we get some warning that it's coming up, and I haven't heard of any accidents since those signs have went up. It doesn't mean they didn't happen, but I haven't heard of any since then. We had a whole string of them before they went up.
Well, I'd say kudos to you guys, because, I mean, that's a large lift, and, I mean, to me, it's much better than the alternative, which was the lazy route of considering a signal at this point, you know, for auto row specifically. You know, so I commend you on
That's still on the table, but,
Oh, I'm sure it is.
but parties, not all parties were on board. That's kind of where that got stalled. And
They're
the town-
expensive now.
Well, the township was real hesitant. We would rather see auto row go back and connect to Hessinger Drive and give people an alternate out. I know it's never gonna happen, but
Well, I mean, you're talking about traffic signs. I
The
mean,
traffic on
freight,
Hammond Road's bad.
people
enough as
commuting,
it is.
that light would have really been this.
yeah.
Those limited access roads though, like at where Walmart is and stuff, those are really nice. They have them all over out in Nevada.
Yeah.
They're really nice.
The one side of Peach Street we got it good, the other side it didn't really work out as well, but.
Anything further on it?
No, that's all I had for tonight, thank you.
Do you have a comment, sir?
Just so you know, my name's Terry Lamb. I live at 8635 Hammond Road. Squeezed right in between two subdivisions on the east side of the road. And I see that traffic whizzing by all the time. And the reason that I know the guy from Butler is because I argued with him for about 6 months over that traffic circle down at the end of the street. 2 stop signs. That no, he had to have his traffic circle there. Must have had extra money in the state budget to spend what a waste of our money. I mean, yeah, they got it all fixed up, they got a flag in the middle of it. Spiffy. I'm not impressed with it, as you can tell. 2 stop signs, really? I've been talking to Matt, and he's been very helpful and giving me information and stuff that I asked for. And I really appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's too late to stop that thing now, so I'll shut up.
Anything further?
I'll give Matt that guy's name and
Appreciate it.
Butler.
All right,
There you go.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting is adjourned.
We're signing, right?